Good afternoon.
Now,
Hey, I wanna just lighten it up a little bit. You know, we know that, all right, Jim's gone, and it's not a great thing, but it's done, right?
okay. Turn down the.
All right,
Yeah.
you're gonna tilt me down. What? You're calling me short? Okay. Jesus Christ.
Dino,
Okay.
Dino.
Anyway, so what I want to do is we're all here. We all knew Jim at one point, whether it was the Bird, Jim, whatever. I grew up with Jim. He took me in. We used to call him the Commander-in-Chief because he had a vision, like Dave talked about. He had a vision that was immaculate. Like, he could look up at El Cap and tell me that's a roof crack, that's a standard crack. Some of you guys don't understand what I'm talking about, but that's okay. But they're called pitons. They're no longer existent. He could look up and he could see something that not very many people could see, which is what we call the line, okay? And Deeg talked about it when he was on the PO and looking over at the sea, and Deeg was going, I don't fucking see anything over there, right? But Jim did. So long story short on that, I want to give you a couple of fun stories, and I don't know if these pictures show Jim with what I call his Cheshire Cat grin, right? Which is always always had a twinkle in his eye and a grin that was just wide to wide, because he knew things that Deke didn't know, I didn't know, a lot of folks that climbed with him didn't know. And he would always pick that team, that special team that would accomplish the goal for the route that he was looking for. And so there was a time, first story, Warner and I were helping out with Jim on the PO wall, okay, which is the Pacific Ocean Wall. And there was a lot of, not publicity, but a lot of interest in it. And there were many climbers that wanted to do it, but Jim had started it, and there was an ethic thing where you don't mess with somebody that starts a route, right? It's theirs, unless they're unable to do it. And we got pretty far up, and we got to this place on the wall called the Continental Shelf, which is about 9 pitches up. And we realized that it was too late in the year to complete the route. And so we wrapped off, and Jim decided to leave his bolt kit on the Continental Shelf. And Warner and I are going, well, fine, it's 80 pounds less that we have to carry down. That's cool with me. And so we left, and we wrapped off. And then about a week later, Jim said, I really want that bowl kit. And Warner and I are looking at it going, we'd been scared shitless belaying Bridwell up these A5 pitches, or A4 now. We're just like going, okay, well, now how do we get this damn bowl kit? Because the Commander-in-Chief had ordered it, So, Warner and I just did what we were told. So we figured we could do the NA for the first 5 and then wander up these shelves, which we did. And back then in the day, we would always chuck things off El Cap, which is now, pardon me, I'm sorry. Anyway, we chuck things off the wall with hammocks or something like that as chutes, and, they'd go down and things would break up and fall apart. Well, I had a friend that had this parachute, this little baby one, and it was for the pre-shoot on a normal parachute. And I said, well, crap, for a bowl kit, this would be perfect, right? And so we went up the NA. It was no big. It took us a few hours, and then we traversed over. We got Jim's bolt kit. And we clipped in the little mini chute. And, you like this. And you chuck it, and one guy holds the chute. And it goes, right? And it was a good chute. It was like a very good chute because the bolt kit went 1,000 feet in the air. And Warner is looking at me like going, oh, fuck. This is the bird, This is his bolt kit. We just fucked up, right? Like bad, okay? And we're watching this thing, and it finally like twirls around and it starts to drop, and Warner and I are up there going, come on, please, like get down to the ground. And, because we were just terrified of the wrath of Jim Bridwell. I mean, he was our mentor, okay? And, you don't come back to the bird and say, hey, I just fucking lost your bolt kit, right? So the thing twirled around, and you guys, some of you know El Cap, some of you don't, but it twirled around, and it got down below us, and it got closer to El Cap Tower. And there's this ledge on the right side of El Cap Tower. It's kind of an obscure ledge, but it has a name. It's called Lay Lady Ledge. And we watched this bolt kit land on Lay Lady Ledge. And I'm like going, oh crap, right? Because this is like, you got to go up the other side, come down, wrap off, do a bunch of shit, and get to this bolt kit. And so we wrapped off the NA and came down to camp and groveled. And Jim goes, where's the bolt kit? And, I said, well, we got it. And he goes, well, where is it? I said, well, we got some complications. And so then I finally said, hey, it landed on Lay Lady. And the perfect bird, okay? This is Commander-in-Chief. He just smiled, because Warner and I thought, oh, fuck, we're in so deep shit, And he just smiled and looked, and he says, hey, looks like you guys are doing stove legs tomorrow. And, that's what we did. We did the stove legs, and we did wrap down, grab the bolt kit. And I won't go into too specific of details, but let's just say we decided to continue wrapping the right side of El Cap Tower, which is a huge mistake. And did some very wonderful rappels that involved some what I call trickery. And, but we made it down, and it was good. But that's one of the things the bird did, was he controlled the entire situation of all of us in Yosemite Valley. I mean, we were his kids, and it was, and I learned a lot from it. It was awesome. So then we have another story. This one's very different because it contradicts actually what I did with Diegelman on the sea. The bird was always very, he always wanted what I termed as a gangbang. He always wanted support. He never would do things in a party of two. And I was this young climber, and I was like going, stick your ass out there, right? And do it. And Charlie Porter had started this route on Halftone called Darkest Africa. And it was a pretty radical route, especially pre-cams and all of that. And he asked me to do it with him. And I said, sure, fine. And he goes, well, I want to bring this other guy. And I said, no. I said, it's just you and I. And so we rigged and we fixed and we did all of the preparations. And then there was this very interesting man that came into camp. He was studying to be a monk. And his name was Danyavad. And he was in his warrior phase. And he came into camp and he looked at all of us and said, you guys are warriors. You just don't know it. And And so Jim, being the organizer and stuff, Danyavad wanted to help. He wanted to be a warrior. So he helped us carry these loads of the slabs of Half Dome, which are, it's a good approach. Let's just say that. And we fixed leads, and we got it all ready, and Jim and I took off. And we figured we'd do it in 5, right? Well, that didn't quite work out so well. But you know, this gentleman had never rock climbed. And if you guys don't know the summit of Half Dome, it's kind of rounded. And you can't really tell where the roots come up, you know, exactly. It's not like the nose or the zodiac or those things. Those things are just like you can figure them out. But so anyway, Jim and I did the route, and it was exciting. Let's just say this. A lot of expending planks, blah, blah, blah. And we ran out of food, and we ran out of water. And we were still a fair amount from the top. And obviously you're running out of energy. And the bird, in his infinite wisdom, always brought this really cool little green bag, right? And I got up to the top of where he was, and it was blank. And he hadn't figured that out. And he looked at me and he goes, "You've got some drilling to do." And, you know, we're both out of food, right? And he reaches into his green bag and he gets out these 2 little pills. And they're white on one side and red on the other, and they have a little Christmas tree on them. Okay? Now, for you in the 70s, you'll understand what a Christmas tree is. For your kids, you won't. It's speed. Okay? And he basically took these 2 pills and he gave them to me, and he says, "Take it, young man. You need some drilling to go do." And so, yeah, I took 2 Christmas trees and drilled a 21-hole ladder. And I did it very happily, okay? I mean, it was fine. I didn't need water. I had Christmas trees, okay? And so we finished the ladder, and we got very close to the top, but we didn't make the summit. And we spent a miserable night, and then the next morning, I got up, and it was a free lead. So the bird sent me on that, because somebody told me I'm actually semi-decent at free climbing. So I summited through the little overhangs on Half Dome, and we are totally out of food and totally gone on water. And I pulled over the overhang, and there is this person sitting on a blanket. Okay? Okay, now imagine, we're out of food for 2 days, right? And I'm looking at this person, and it's Danyavad. And he's not a climber, and he doesn't know where we would top out. And he's peeling this peach. And I'm like drooling, right? Looking at a frickin' peach. And he goes, "I've been expecting you," right? And, you know, I yelled under the bird, we're tied off, right? He jugs up. I get the bag up on top. And this guy brought a frame pack and carried all of our shit down. And the bird looked over at me again with this grin, and I knew what was coming. Right? And he goes to the green bag, and he pulls out 2 hits of LSD, or acid. And he said, "Well, we got a free ride down. You know?" He says, "We might as well enjoy the hike." And yeah, so that was it. I just wanted to make you laugh, okay? You know, I wanted you to appreciate Jim Bridwell, okay? And that's the bird, okay? And so thank you very much for letting me speak about a very dear friend. Take care.
And our next speaker is going to be Ron Kauk. Ron, can you come up here, please?
Well, it's really good to be here. and hear all these kind words flowing and the stories that have been coming out. You know? I'm really trying to wrap my mind around this whole story, or maybe I should say get my heart into it, because there's something, it's very big. I think when a lot of us took on this news about losing such a legend, you know, such a guy that, actually my life wouldn't be the same if I didn't meet Jim Bridwell. That's true. And the things come to mind, like being a 15-year-old coming up from the Bay Area on a high school weekend and getting to go do Outer Limits to Cookie with Jim Bridwell. Putting you on the lead. Go ahead. You lead the first pitch. I was so over-psyched for that pitch. But I didn't run it out like David was talking about. Jammed it, because, you know, I took mountaineering school and they told you to protect yourself, everybody. But that pitch seemed like it was 5'6" to me. And I know it was because Bridwell was holding that rope. So he was holding a rope for me in a way on that climb, but I think he was holding something that was even more precious to me. There was a way of life. That door was swinging open. And I got the honor to be what we might have been called the Bridwell Boys that time, a little team. So that summer, 1674, spent the whole summer up here. And I headed back to high school, made the first day of that high school, and I said, this isn't really working out for me. So thank God for the blessing of my mom. She thought, you know, maybe you are better off up there. You know, because what might happen. So I came back to Yosemite at 17 to spend the autumn. Imagine that opportunity. And during that time, we headed up on a new route called Geek Towers to the right of Yosemite Falls with my brother Dale Bard. One of the greatest adventures ever, to be on a new climb like that with Jim. You know, going, it's maybe 7 or so pitches. You know, and I'm feeling a sense of freedom that is, like I said, it's hard to put in words for a 17-year-old teaming up with Jim Bridwell and Dale Bard. I can even back up for a second, coming up on another weekend, seeing Dale Bard's van in Camp 4 with Jimi Hendrix music blaring out of it and all the ropes and the headband collection, going, man, this is amazing. This really makes sense somehow. You know? And you're building your confidence by doing the core boulder or the Chenard mantle. So there's such a rich history. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to wrap my mind around it. It's so profound, but at the same time, with this legacy and this energy, we want to keep it going. You know, that's why it's nice to honor these guys that have, you know, they're our elders, and they're leaving with something, but they took something with them, but they're leaving something for us. You know? And that's what I'm trying to understand. But anyway, so we went up to Geek Towers, and it was kind of smoky in there. They were doing controlled burns or something, so that sense of place was starting to build in pretty heavy. So we, you know, it was a pretty tough route, and there was a nice off-wit Dale led up there, but we got to the top, and there was just this little point that you could put a sling around, and we started rappelling. And then Bridwell, you know, he always wanted to be saving gear. Maybe some of you have climbed with him. So he would put in the anchor for rappel, and then he would have something to back it up. But since the other part of the anchor held, whichever one might have been, you know, who knows, a little sling and a crack or something. He goes, well, you can take out that backup because it held Dale and myself in it, so you'll wrap down. Just funny stuff, but he knew what he was doing, you know. He had to save gear, right? But anyway, it's just, this is such a beautiful place. And so when I think of that Bridwell and what he represented, he was the Yosemite climber. You know, when I was a kid, I would read about what a Yosemite climber was. To be a hard man, you had to do these certain routes. So there was this image of a climber in my mind. So meeting Bridwell, he was that image. He was that climber that I guess I wanted to be. You know? So like I say, it's really profound to think about that opportunity to live in Camp 4 with so many friends that you see out here. All these people. Mark Chapman. When Bridwell wrote The Brave New World, there was a picture of Chapman on that owl roof. There was a teacher up there in the classroom, and I was like, man, how is he hanging upside down like that? So the imagination was just kicking in, and you got to move into a little tribal community. So to me, Bridwell represents what's here today. It's about community, you know? It's about making connections and inspiring each other. So there's just so much to say and so much to imagine, but what we are getting here today is the kindness that he had to take some of us under his wing and the things he shared, like Dick Dorwers was saying, and the fact that he had Kim Schmidt's shirt on. This is a big story, you know? So it's all written in these walls to continue, you know? And that's why we want to help the next generation keep these stories and keep these understandings of who was here first, because like he said, we're building ourselves off the shoulders of the ones before us. We're standing on the shoulders. Heavy. So it's a beautiful thing to have such a legend move on, but leave us with this legacy of the humanness that he carried, you know? Very human. And he lived his life very, very well. You know, so I hope there'll be some other films made that aren't just like the Valley Uprising. It was something, it kind of gave a thing, but I think that there was so much more to it, you know? And I was making a little reference like, what do we remember Jimi Hendrix? Did Jimi Hendrix take a few drugs? Probably. But did he play his guitar and express himself? And I think that's what Bridwell was. He was kind of the Jimi Hendrix for us, man. He expressed himself. And when I hear certain music, like we were joking around about Cream, Eric Clapton, you know, Rolling Stones, whatever it might have been, and Jimi Hendrix, I can just sense Bridwell and all that, because he was so colorful. Yeah, it's very impressive. One thing about bringing this whole story together is it has a lot to do with Yosemite, the beauty of this place, you know. And again, that's the legacy of these generations, the 60s and 70s. We were walking barefoot to the cliffs. There was a time of revolution, you know. So maybe that revolution of the 70s and the 60s wants to come back into the mix, and I hope it does. I hope that we get a little stronger. Seriously, all in that time we had our Carlos Castaneda books, the autobiography of a yogi, there was a lot of interest in that spirituality. So in a way, if you think about talking about this drug thing, I think Jim's effort was in the spiritual understanding of all that, you know, just to clean that up a little bit. But anyway, I don't know what else to say, but I'm coming from my heart, and thank you all that are here today, that we all have a little piece of that man in us, you know, and let's keep moving with it. And the respect and appreciation for Yosemite and all the climbing that's taking place here. Thank you.